happening now so that they can deliver their opening statements, and then we'll get right to questions. Mr. Secretary.
Well, thanks, John, and thanks to everybody. I'm really glad to be with you. I know you're covering the situation in Europe closely, and so I want to update you on what the department's doing to support Ukraine and to uphold our ironclad commitment to our NATO allies. As you know, for months now, Russia has been deploying forces to Crimea and along Ukraine's border, including in Belarus. It has progressed at a consistent and steady pace involving tens of thousands of Russian troops. And it is being supported by increased Russian naval activity in the northern Atlantic and the Mediterranean Sea. While we don't believe that President Putin has made a final decision to use these forces against Ukraine, he clearly now has that capability. And there are multiple options available to him, including the seizure of cities and significant territories, but also coercive acts or provocative political acts like the recognition of breakaway territories. Indeed, we're seeing Russian state media spouting off now about alleged activities in eastern Ukraine. Now, this is straight out of the Russian playbook, and they're not fooling us. We remain focused on Russian disinformation, including the potential creation of pretext for further invasion or strikes on Donbass. And any Russian attack or further incursion into Ukraine would not only ignite conflict, it would also violate the bedrock principles of national sovereignty, territorial integrity, and self-determination. So this is something that we're taking very seriously, both as a strong partner of Ukraine and as one of 30 members of NATO, who are unified in opposition to Russia's attempts to undermine those core values and threaten peace and security in Europe. So let me be clear on where things stand today. First, conflict is not inevitable. There is still time and space for diplomacy. The United States, in lockstep with our allies and partners, has offered Russia a path away from crisis and toward greater security. And the Department of Defense will continue to support those diplomatic efforts. Second, the United States remains committed to helping Ukraine defend itself through security assistance material. And since 2014, we've committed more than $2.7 billion in security assistance to Ukraine. And that includes more security assistance to Ukraine in the past year, $650 million, than at any previous time. And so in December, President Biden authorized $200 million in assistance, which included additional javelins and other anti-armor weapons, grenade launchers, large quantities of artillery and small arms ammunition, and other equipment. Those deliveries are ongoing. Indeed, another shipment just arrived today. And third, the United States will stand shoulder to shoulder with our NATO allies. And that includes reinforcing security on NATO's eastern flank. And as you know, we placed thousands of U.S. troops on prepare to deploy orders earlier this week. If NATO activates its response forces, these troops will be ready to go. Now, the situation on Ukraine's borders is changing rapidly. But as we look ahead, there are a couple of things that we can count on. One, this department will continue to provide President Biden with options to defend our national security interest in response to Russian actions. And two, we will stay united with our NATO allies. Earlier this week, I spoke with my Polish counterpart. Yesterday, I spoke with my Romanian counterpart. And this morning, I had two very good conversations with my counterparts in France and Germany. As we've made clear, in addition to the significant economic and diplomatic costs that Russia will incur, a move on Ukraine will accomplish the very thing Russia says it does not want. A NATO alliance strengthened and resolved on its western flank. The United States will contribute to NATO's response forces, and we will coordinate with our NATO allies. And we will make sure that they have the capabilities that they need to defend themselves. Article 5 is clear on this point. An attack against one NATO member is an attack against us all. And as President Biden has said, the United States holds this as a sacred obligation. And we will do right by that commitment. And Mr. Putin can do the right thing as well. There's no reason that this situation has to devolve into conflict. He can choose to de-escalate. He can order his troops away. He can choose dialogue and diplomacy. Whatever he decides, the United States will stand with our allies and partners. I want to briefly address two other items before we open it up for questions. First, on Wednesday, I was honored to join the President when he signed an executive order to help us deliver on the promise that all men and women in uniform should be able to serve their country free from fear of violence or harassment. This executive order will improve the military justice system's response to sexual assault, harassment, and related crimes, and I welcome it. And finally, as you know, yesterday I directed changes to the department's civilian harm mitigation and response policy oversight and processes. Within 90 days, we will unveil a plan to specify the range of actions that we'll take on civilian harm mitigation and response, including important steps building on knowledge and best practices and tools for preventing and mitigating and responding to civilian harm. But I also ordered some immediate steps, including the establishment of a Civilian Harm Center of Excellence, reporting to me, that will compel us to learn from our mistakes and to make changes in stride. I know personally how hard we work to avoid civilian harm and to abide by the law of armed conflict. But I've also said that we need to do better, and we will. This is a priority for me, and we will ensure that we are transparent as we continue this important work. And so now I'll turn it over to